Welcome back to the Point Reyes Tour 2019. This is actually the leaving Point Reyes part of the trip. We had stayed an extra night at the hostel because we enjoyed it so much, and this gave us a chance to knock out a couple of the extra hikes and also stop off at the Cypress Tree Tunnel for some obligatory tunnel shots. Here's one of the tunnel itself, and I have one of Dana and I, but her hair was super short, and now with quarantine her hair is much longer. And I didn't want to disrupt the space-time continuum inserting that here, so check out those trees! From here we had no plan aside from drive north on Highway 1 and find a place to car camp. If you aren't familiar with Highway 1 north of San Francisco, the car camp spots book up pretty quick during the summertime, but we were willing to take our chances. We struck out a few times and then stumbled upon Fort Ross and decided to stop in for a walkabout to boost morale. Fun fact, Fort Ross was a former Russian settlement where Russian explorers moved east across Siberia and then down the northern Pacific. On the way, they brought Alaskan hunters who occupied a small village in front of Fort Ross closer to the water. The Alaskans applied their skills and made a significant foothold in the seal pelt trade. When the settlement was established, it was under Spanish rule, then the Mexican-American War took place, and by the time the settlement wound down, it was under the rule of Mexico. There was some other interesting California history I wasn't aware of, so if you're ever in the area and you're into that stuff, check it out. Winding down the Fort Ross tour, we knew we still needed a place to camp, and our last resort was a place called the Pomo Canyon Environmental Campground, right by the Pomo Canyon Trail, which we found in the 101 Great Hikes book. The campground has all first come, first served sites with minimal amenities. You park, fill out the form, insert exact change in the envelope, and drop it in the box. The campsites have a fire ring and a table, and nearby are some long drop dunnies. But let's be honest, what else do you need? Thanks 101 Great Hikes. Now we did do things a bit backwards, where I think you would normally car camp first and then end with a hostel stay where you can clean up and sleep in a bed, but sometimes you gotta dare to be different. Fun camp story, other campers told us local teens were raging in the parking lot the night before. Luckily, that wasn't the case for us, but we did have some neighbors that seemed like they had missed the party. They had some gear, but it was minimal, no camp stove, and they seemed to be having trouble with their tent, so I popped over to help them get that set up. At one point they asked for a stove, and we had an extra one, so we hooked them up. Didn't hear back, so we thought we'd reconnect in the morning, and we called it a night. The next morning I heard them packing up early, and thought to myself, if they left the stove, great, but if not, it was an inexpensive backpacker stove, so no big deal. We get our morning routine going, I check their campsite, and don't see the stove. But then I take a quick peek in the fire ring, and lo and behold, camp stove. They had used it to light their campfire in the fire ring. The fuel can and stove were warped, but thankfully no one got hurt. I think it's great for people to get out and experience the outdoors, but come on man, at least nail down the safety basics so you aren't causing harm to yourself or others. Pro tip. Alright, back to hiking. Pomo Canyon Trail. The first bit has some nice coverage, and then it opens up and you are in some of that exposed grassland like we were familiar with from Point Reyes. The path isn't too bad, minimal elevation, there was some overgrowth on the trail and some tree falls, but nothing too bad. I think this right here is Red Hill, sort of an anticlimactic view, so we didn't really stick around, plus we had to jam back to avoid having to pay for another night. But truthfully, we wanted to get back to get some lunch at Soul Food on the drive back. If you live anywhere in the Bay Area, you've got to get out here. The food is so good, and you need to get a bottle of their sauce to take home. Look at this, I'm running out and I need to start thinking about making another trip soon. Back to Seoul. We were so hungry that I was slipping on the food footage and didn't pull out the camera until I was already halfway through my meal, but seriously, it's that good. I'm sorry guys, I've really got to do a better job at getting those food shots. Also, this was a year ago, so let's say anything new I film should be good to go. Hopefully. After the late lunch, it was a mellow drive back to the South Bay, and you know, hitting up Marin for some day hikes would definitely be doable, and worth it for that soul food stop. Pro tip if you need an excuse to drive over that bridge. And that wraps up the Point Reyes Tour 2019. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you on the next one.